everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing something special, a deep dive into one of the strangest and most ambitious projects that Microsoft ever cooked up for the Perfect Dark franchise. And no, I'm not talking about the reboot that just got canned. I'm talking about Perfect Dark Core, a dark, gritty, identity crisis-having sequel that almost existed after Perfect Dark Zero. We're going to be exploring concept art, leaked design docs, character bios, mission plans, and why Joanna Dark became Jo Durant. Yeah, this is going to get messy, so grab your falcon, strap in, and let's take a tour over the sequel that is forever banished to stay in the perfectly dark shadows. The year is 2006. Perfect Dark Zero just launched as one of the Xbox 360's big exclusives. It'd be met with mixed reviews from both diehard fans and new players, but the message still stood. The love for Perfect Dark was there. Microsoft had a choice, either to let Joanna rest or to move forward with another game that would redeem the franchise. Enter Perfect Dark Core. This wasn't a continuation of PDZ's comic book style adventure. Core was going to turn the series on its head. It was going to be a grittier, bloodier, and more adult version of the game. Joanna wasn't going to be a rookie anymore. She was going to be a scarred, battle-hardened soldier. Think cyberpunk military thriller meets Xbox shooter. But here's where I start to lose my patience. Rare didn't just evolve Joanna, they rebranded her. In Core, she's Captain Jo Durant. Dark hair streaked with red, face scarred, and stripped of her signature sleek look. Now I get what they were going for. They wanted a more mature, grisly Joanna Dark to contrast her rookie self in PDZ. After all, generally fans of the original Perfect Dark game weren't a huge fan of Joanna Dark's new Spice Girl look. But this redesign just didn't land. Instead of iconic, she looks like she could be a background character in Gears of War. And I'll be blunt, I don't like this look. Joanna has always been stylish, sharp, and iconic. Someone you recognize. From her sleek and stealthy look in PD1, to her sexy and edgy appearance in Perfect Dark Zero. This Jo seems to lean a little too far into the edgy, hardened look, and seems like she just crawled out of the local Hot Topic. Alright, story time. Buckle in because this is where Perfect Dark Core goes full dystopian cyberpunk soap opera. The year is 2031. The Carrington Institute, pretty much toast. Done, disbanded. And Carrington himself, well, he's not sitting in an armchair sipping on scotch anymore. No, he's the president of the United Trade Organization. Yeah, the man who once waged shadow wars against Datadyne is basically working with the Illuminati with better branding. Totally trustworthy, right? And where's our girl Joanna Dark? She's working as part of his personal security team. On the surface, she's Carrington's glorified bodyguard, all earpieces and sunglasses. But underneath, she's still the Joanna we know. A spy, a double agent, and someone stuck cleaning up the message that she and Carrington helped create in the first place. The irony writes itself. So the world is a mess. The UWTO has all the power, and not everyone is thrilled about it. Enter the environmentalists. Now, with a name like that, you'd be thinking it's a bunch of hippies chaining themselves to trees, right? Wrong. These guys come with their own military wing called the Black Easter. And if that name doesn't scream, we're the bad guys, I don't know what does. At a peace conference, because of course it's at a peace conference, Black Easter pulls off the ultimate power move. They assassinate Daniel Carrington, and kill over 1,200 people in the process. And then, just to twist the knife, they frame Joanna Dark for the attack. Cue the world's fastest trial and boom, guilty, sentenced to death. But plot twist. Before Joanna can meet the firing squad, she's rescued by a mysterious figure and recruited into the Core. This shadowy paramilitary group has a motto that feels like it was cooked up by a 14-year-old writing in blood in their notebook. No questions asked, no quarter given. Subtlety? Never heard of it. Training with the Core is brutal. Think less James Bond martini and more foxhound hazing ritual. But Joanna Dark is reborn, and 2 years later, she's not Joanna Dark anymore, she's Jo Durant. Gone is a signature blonde streak, swapped out for jet black hair with an edgy red slash across the front. Because nothing says gritty reboot quite like a dye job. Now captain of the Core, Joanna has her first big mission. Prince Vox has taken the Persian royal family hostage in Cairo. His bargaining chip? A thermo device powerful enough to level half the city. So Joanna and her squad have to go full strike team mode, infiltrating Vox's fortress. The plan is to save the royals, capture Vox, and clear her name. Easy, right? Wrong. Vox is 10 steps ahead, just like any proper video game villain should be. Joanna secures the royal family, but the Slippery Prince escapes. And just when she thinks she's got a clean getaway, enters sentient AI mech. Yeah, Black Easter isn't just rolling with AKs. They've got Skynet cosplay on their side. Joanna just barely escapes, then boom, half of Cario up in flames courtesy of Vox. So that's where things really start to spiral. We don't exactly know where the story was going after Cario, but here's the kicker. Rare planned Core as an episodic series, so instead of one complete campaign, each entry was going to end on a cliffhanger, drip feeding us the chaos sequel by sequel. Meaning this, Joanna framed as a terrorist while chasing down Techno Prince with the giant murder mech saga? Yeah, it was just the beginning. If you ask me, the idea of an episodic game sounds super familiar. Like, really familiar. And planning the game plot based around the idea of having following sequels, well, that takes balls. Honestly, from what we know about the reboot, I'm getting major deja vu. And I think it's just an additional pinch of salt that that game also faced the same fate. Alrighty, let's talk about gameplay, because this is where Perfect Dark Core really started to blur the lines between ambitious and are you sure about that? The single-player campaign was going to be broken up into chapters, kind of like the mission structure from the original Perfect Dark on N64. Each mission was going to be split into phases: infiltration, action, escape, the works. And to tie it all together, fancy cinematics, not FMVs, not clunky in-game cutscenes, but actually cinematic storytelling to make sure we weren't left scratching our heads. Which honestly sounds like a huge improvement considering how much Zero just liked to vaguely gesture at the plot and hoped you were paying attention. Now, co-op, yeah, it's about what you'd expect. Player 2 once again being demoted to random sidekick number 3, following Joanna around like a lost puppy, probably pressing one or two exclusive buttons along the way. You know, the classic little sibling mode. But hey, at least it's there. But here's where things get juicy. Counter-operative mode. That's right, the fan favorite from the original was set to make a comeback, and honestly, this one still hurts. It's one of my biggest complaints about Zero, how counter-op just got left in the dust. It's such a simple, brilliant idea. One player runs through the mission normally as Joanna, and the other jumps in as the bad guys trying to stop her. Suddenly, every encounter is unpredictable. Every corner could be your buddy trying to blow your head off. Nothing like splitting up your TV with a piece of cardboard and sitting under it so your friend can't see what you're doing on the other side. And according to Core's pitch slides, this would have just been grunts. You could have actually spawned in as bosses. Which, let's be real, this either would have been insanely fun or totally busted. Imagine logging in just to repeatedly spawn as a bullet sponge with rocket launchers. Surprise, it's me again, I brought explosives. Or even better, spawning in as a guard whose only weapon is like a stun baton. Fear me, Joanna! Tremble before my plastic stick. Absolute chaos, and I love it. Now here's where Rare was cooking up something new. Tertiary missions. Think of them as bonus objectives that spun off the main mission. You'd clear your primary objective and then boom, a new layer of side content unlocks. Kind of like Perfect Dark's unlockable missions, but framed with more narrative add-ons. Honestly, it's a pretty clever way to stretch playtime while giving completionists even more excuses to live in this world. So yeah, on paper, Core's gameplay was shaping up to be this hybrid of classic mission-based Perfect Dark structure, mixed with some of the co-op and cinematic storytelling ideas from Zero, and sprinkled with ambitious little experiments like counter-op bosses and bonus missions. It's the kind of mix that screams, this could have been incredible, or a complete mess. And that's why I can't stop thinking about it. So why don't we have Perfect Dark Core today? Well, because by 2008, Core wasn't even really Perfect Dark anymore. Rare had started steering the ship towards a totally different direction. The gritty espionage themes, the framed agent story, Joanna Dark with a red streak looking like she just joined a metal band, yeah, all of that was getting pushed aside in favor of one thing: mechs. Big, stomping, steel-crushing, city-flattening mechs. Core slowly morphed into a more generic sci-fi project, complete with a brand new male protagonist. There's at least one full level playable, with environments, weapons, and those hulking mech encounters baked in. Some beta footage still floats around online. It's rough, sure, but you can see the bones of what Core was supposed to be. And I'll be honest, even though it's scrappy and unfinished, it kinda rules. But Rare was juggling way too much at the time. Remember, this was the era of the Xbox 360. Viva Pinata, Banjo and Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, Kinect Sports. Yeah, the whiplash was real. Meanwhile, the core team was getting smaller and smaller, eventually shrinking down to like 3 people. 3. That's not even enough to make a Halo firefight squad. And without the proper green light from Xbox leadership, the project just fizzled out. So in the end, Perfect Dark Core went in the way of so many ambitious projects before it. Bold ideas, big concepts, but caught in the crossfire of shifting priorities. And honestly, it's kind of poetic. Just like the most recently cancelled reboot, Core was a victim of ambition crashing with reality. Rare just had to move on. Xbox didn't bite, and Joanna Dark's darkest chapter got locked away in the vault. Here's my perfectly dark opinion. Perfect Dark Core was bold, ambitious, and probably doomed. The mech ideas were cool, the larger cast was interesting. The darker Joanna, I could have been on board, but they lost me with all the changes we know to Perfect Dark. Daniel Carrington could never be an evil bad guy. He's just way too smart to be misled by that. Besides, killing off our beloved characters? No thanks. Not to mention, I'm not a huge fan of Joe's look here. The hair change and the name change, I mean, is she even Joanna Dark anymore? Not really. Still, I love the history because even when Rare failed, they failed big. Core reminds us of what the franchise could have been and where it could have gone in wild directions, and honestly, I'm glad it didn't. Seems like we dodged 2 bullets now, right? But that's it for this deep dive into Perfect Dark Core. What do you think? Would you have liked Core? Was it a hidden gem, or did Rare prevent the biggest end grenade from going off? Drop your thoughts in the comments and share if you would have played a mech piloting Scarface Joe Durant. Oh, and don't forget to do all those YouTuber things everyone's always been talking about. Rate it 5 stars, and until next time, have a perfectly dark day.